Another mini speaker today. We've got Bob Ashley with us. If you see his name misspelt, it's my fault. Bob, as a young lad, 16 or 17, joined the RAF in 1946, and in his second year with the RAF, he found himself in Germany, in Lubeck. And he's got some pleasant memories of that time. And after spending his time in the RAF, he came to Australia, worked in the aviation industry, and started work on Jandakot Airport in 1964. And if those of you that follow history remember what 1964 was, it was when the aerodrome was first opened. So he knows a bit about Jandakot, and he'll tell you a little bit more about his background as he goes into the story of Lubeck. Over to you, Bob.
I'm Bob Ashley, and I volunteered to do this talk, shall we say. I joined the Air Force in '46, and I was in, after 2 years, I was in Bafo, Germany, British Air Force of Occupation, on Moser unit at Vannes, near Cologne. When the airlift started, I was detached from Lubeck up into North Germany by a rail trip through the Ruhr. As you know, the Ruhr was a mess at the time. Dortmund, Dusseldorf, Essen, Hamburg, all ruins, wrecked trains, rail yards, everything. Anyway, we got through to Hamburg, and I got through to Lubeck. There's an old Luftwaffe base there, and they put in a lot of PSPs, pressed steel plate parking for the aircraft, and we had up to about 20 Dakotas at any one time. The original airlift, well, as you can see, Lubeck top corner there. The original airlift was called Operation Carter-Patterson by the English originally, because that's an English moving firm that used to do furniture moving. Then they changed the name to Operation Planefair fairly soon, just after that. We were on 24-hour-a-day shifts, 8 hours on, the rest of the time off, trying to work out if it was day or night, because it was dark most of the time, especially in the winter. See the flight path there, the flight path from Lubeck, and then they flew in to Gatow and then back out again. And the various bases from Germany, Americans had Fasberg and Celle, and we had Wunsdorf and Buckeberg, and then the rest were at Rhein-Main down in Wiesbaden, which was an American air zone down there. All servicing we did was online, parked outdoors. Me in 1948 with a couple of mates, a Polish guard and a friend of mine there. That was at Lubeck, and that's one of our aircraft. There's somebody doing some marshalling there. You can see the PSP plating runway. Everything was just grass covered with steel plates. All our servicing was done outside. Jacking the aircraft, wheel changes, everything was done outdoors, because there was one small hangar which you only had it for emergency stuff. The fuel loads on these Dakotas for a specific flight, it used to take 140, 150 miles, so we put a fuel load as a dipstick load. We just put fuel up to the level so they didn't carry extra fuel, because they were carrying 3.5 tons of freight, which the Remy army people loaded with German labourers. The aircraft were brought in from UK as we needed them. We did the general servicing, the rest was flown in, and they did transferred aircraft as we went. We had crews there from RAF, RAAF, RNZAF, RCAF and South African Air Force. They were all flying RAF aeroplanes, but from our base, so you didn't know who was going to be flying it next. As I said, the loading was done by the Army, so we didn't have much to do with that. But they carried, you name it, varied loads, large rolls of newspaper, about 4 to the aircraft, dried fruit, tinned fruit, shoes, engineering equipment cut to pieces and re-welded up at the other end, and they were flown in. The aircraft went off in what we call blocks. And we'd have about 1/3 of the aircraft at any one time that were serviceable, which would go off in blocks. That was groups, and they'd fly in together. The problem was starting we had limited ground crew, so starting was a bit of a problem, because if you know anything about aeroplane, you had to start. And the Air Force, you are not allowed to use internal batteries at all. It's a chargeable offence. So you had to drag a trolley out, as you can see over there, start a trolley over and plug it in underneath, and the Dakota, the plug is right under the belly. Used to hold the traffic up on it because we couldn't do it. So we could, a clever fellow got a 30 hundredweight Bedford, put a trolley in the back with a long lead, and we'd back the aircraft, back it up to the front of the aircraft there. One of us would go underneath, plug it in underneath there. The chocks would be on ropes to the truck, and when he would start it, the bloke on the truck would wave the pilot to start. As soon as he'd started it, we'd pull the cable out, run down underneath the belly, holding onto the antenna wire so he didn't run into the props. Especially slippery at night time, and when it's ice and snow, it was a bit dicey. But we could start aircraft, about 6 or 8 aircraft fairly quickly, otherwise it was just couldn't do it. That's some of the bods were just taken around. Don't remember most of them, but you know how it is. That's some of their, and more people with some of their aircraft there. That's another one taking out, taxiing out. And so it was only a single runway airfield, so we were a bit limited. And to approach at Lubeck, the aircraft had to fly over the Russian, lower the Russian zone, because the end of the runway wouldn't have been half a mile from the Russian zone, and they were taking off and landing over it. So that made it a bit dicey. That's some of our aircraft moving out, and it's just a picture of one of them just being taxied around. We had that was a Mark IV Meteor. They'd just gone into squadron service, and it came into visit, and it was there for some reason. We don't know, some big chief had got himself a private aeroplane and flew it in. Oh, that's not supposed to be me, but it wasn't. It's a friend of mine. I took the picture underneath the aircraft. The plug for the starting is under here, and the chocks here were tied to the truck, and we just run down, hang on to the antenna. If you know Dakotas, they've got a radio antenna under there, and you'd hang on to that because they got very slippery. That's the one that taxied off a little bit hard. We did have a lot of trouble in the winters, because in the winter the mess was open 24 hours a day, so you didn't know if you're getting breakfast, dinner or tea. But in all weathers we'd be called out in the middle of the night, and there was howling storms. If you know North Germany, it gets very cold and snowy and wet. And we'd be called out and climb in and turn around all the aircraft, push by hand to face into wind, tie the wings down with concrete blocks, and then 2 of us, mechanic ground crew, would sit in the cockpit and keep the brakes pumped up and fly it on the controls. Although they had locks in, you had to fly it to hold it down because it would lift the concrete blocks off the ground. After about 8 or 9 months at Lubeck, I was sent back to my home base at Varn onto the Mozzie place for a month or 2 for a sort of rest. Then I was sent to Wunsdorf, which was the York base, and which had major 4-engine aircraft. If you know the York, it's the Lancaster wings with a big square fuselage and carries 9 ton. We would only carry 3.5 in the Dakota. And I finished my time on York to the end of the airlift and then posted back to UK. Thank you.